She's an author, TV producer, and advertising guru. She's a mother and a grandmother, and she's writing her own future. Ladies, please welcome Sadiqa Peerbhoy. Sadiqa, you know, the really interesting thing about you is that you've tried so many different things, you know. So I wanted to start with the writing that you've done. You know, you've been writing books as well as writing these really funny columns. So, you know, one article that really struck me is, you know, this mom without the capital M, right? So you talked about, you know, basically motherhood when you were a kid and, you know, when you were referring to your mom, that, you know, they also motherhood with a capital M, but you didn't, you know. So tell me about your view on motherhood and how it all comes through in a lot of your articles.
Well, I think motherhood is one of the nicer things that happened to me. And at the time when I got my children, I had a very, very demanding career. And I have always had a very demanding husband and very, very active social life. And then these two little kids came into my life, and suddenly I found there's one more dimension to me which is so fulfilling and so satisfying. And it sort of, let's say, brought out the woman in me, and it was very nice. And then I found that I was writing more and more about my kids rather than, I did a lot of advertising writing, and that is to a brief where the client sits and says, this, cut out this word and put that word in, kind of thing. So to keep my sanity in a very deadline-ridden, I started writing a column. And then these kids were born, so I found them so fascinating that practically every column was about my kids.
Right, because there's so much that happens every day. You know,
yes.
I should write a column too.
You should. And they'd come back from school and say, can't you write about something else?
They must be so embarrassed.
They were so embarrassed because the teachers would say, oh, I read about how you did your homework, and I read about how
you didn't do your homework.
How you did this, and how you cheeked your mother, how you answered back your father, some little thing. And they'd come back and say, Mom, can't you write about something else? Why do you have to keep writing about us? I said, I have nothing else to write about.
Right, I know.
First thing they do, my son has been through a lot of girlfriends. So every time he brings a girlfriend home, the first thing he does is presents a book and says, this is what we're all about.
I love it, the life history documented like that. You didn't even have to make a baby book. That was just
I know, that was there. And then that poor girl has to run through that whole book to find out what this man is all about.
That is very funny. Yes. So, so you were writing alongside working in advertising.
Yes.
And this was a company that was started by your husband's family?
Yes, it is owned by my husband's family, and he's the second generation advertising man, and my children are third generation advertising.
Okay, wonderful.
And I married into advertising, so I stayed there for a long time.
Okay. Yeah. So you actually met on the job, right?
Yes. Yes. I joined as a trainee. And he was also a trainee, and well, somehow they got us to model together in Sparks or whatever.
Lovely. And so tell us about how it is working with family, because I read in an article that you said we don't take home to the office or take the office to the home, but is that really true? Because my husband and I work together, and actually we're talking work all the time, you know?
No, that was a survival tactic we learned after many years of quarreling in the office and taking the quarrel back home. So then we decided that we would draw a line and said, when we are home, we will not talk business, and when we're in the office. But lucky for me, my field was quite different from his. He was in management,
and you were the creative.
And I was on the creative side.
Okay.
But we did interact a lot, and we got into a lot of skirmishes, but it was part of the fun.
So tell us more about the advertising industry. This was in the 80s, right? Where it was, I guess, new, right? You know, advertising was new, TV was new, communication was new.
It was a very exciting phase in advertising because these multinationals had not come in. So we weren't, hidebound by their international, statutory ingredients to the advertising. And we could experiment, and creativity was blossoming out, and you could really go out and get a lot of sales by the sheer power of one line or one creative line or whatever. And then TV was coming in a big way, so then TV commercials were a big thing. So it was most exciting. It was really exciting.
You had to just learn all of these new mediums because they're just, they're new. So
as they came along, yes.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
So, and you were creative director
Later, I started as copywriter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
copywriter means that we don't copy anything. We just write copy.
Actually, why don't you tell us about some of the more interesting campaigns that you worked on? Maybe some that you're really fond of.
Too many, I can't begin to remember them. I've worked on a lot of big brands on consumer goods and industrial products and corporate campaigns, and I've won many awards. But I've sort of erased advertising from my mind now, because it gets into your system.
You had so many avatars, I guess.
Yes. So at one point of time, I had to leave it behind. So I don't want to. It's something that gets into your bloodstream, and you really can't leave it in a hurry. So I had a lot of angst leaving it, and a lot of pangs leaving it behind. So now I've managed to cut it out of my system, and especially since you're married into an advertising family, and your children are in advertising, your husband's in advertising, and your father-in-law was in advertising. Right. So one has to draw the line somewhere.
Okay, and is that the reason why it was your next step, the educational venture that you started?
Yes.
So I mean, this is a really brave thing to do, because from advertising, so you're being an entrepreneur and starting a
college.
Starting a college for advertising.
But to teach advertising and design,
right,
and graphic design and things.
So how was your experience as an entrepreneur?
Well, that was more or less related, and in a way, I thought it was my way of giving back to the profession what I had got from the profession. So, and Bangalore had no, in my time in advertising, when we first came to Bangalore in the 70s, it was such a nascent field. There were no people available, so we had to take freshers from colleges and train them.
Right.
So in the process, we've trained so many people, so we thought we'd do it in a more formal way. I mean, I thought I'd do it in a more formal way. So we started the college, and then we literally formulate the courses and the modules and things like that, and it was very, very fulfilling.
So, and you've set up an institution which still carries on.
Not really. It was a franchise, and this is a college which is there in near Manchester. Mm-hmm. So they have some operations in Delhi, and in turn I was franchised by Delhi.
Okay.
And but the advertising courses were new. We added this MBA in advertising and an MBA in marketing, and that was our innovation.
Okay.
So now that carries on.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And what were your favorite memories of this place?
The school was good fun. We used to, in the initial days, we had this little rambling kind of hut in Domlur, which we got for cheap, with a big compound. And my colleagues and I used to sit there waiting, and then we see somebody walking into the gate, and go rush back and sit at our desk and say, students, come here, and try to look formal. Otherwise, we were fooling around. And then, head of academics and things, you have to look a little sober and things.
That's nice to know.
So we'd rush back and sit at our desks and try to look very, dignified.
And so you started something else interesting after this. It was Energy the next step?
Energy skills, yes.
Okay.
Everything sort of flew one out of the other. It was a kind of a sequential thing, because from my advertising career, we started teaching advertising. And then when that went, by which time we had done a lot of corporate training and soft skill training for the students. Mm-hmm. We had formulated the modules, and we had got in touch with professionals. So then we started marketing that to corporates. So that's what Energy Skill did. Which was
communication skills,
presentation skills,
soft skills.
And we even taught deportment to people from ABB and Dell and things, engineers who were going abroad.
Right.
So we had to give them multicultural social skills and things like that. So it was fun while it lasted. It was nice.
Really interesting. So from all of these projects, I'm sure you've had your shares of ups and downs. So what would you consider your highest of highs?
Advertising.
My
first love.
And then what would be your lowest of lows?
Lowest was towards the end. I mean, a couple of years ago when I wound down Energy Skills, we were doing a lot of recruitment for companies, and I found I was not enjoying that at all. And I don't have marketing skills, so I was not enjoying getting in touch with clients and selling them the concept of recruitment.
Right. Yeah. I think you're just a creative at heart.
Yeah. So I closed that down.
Okay.
So and then I said I'm old enough to do what I like best.
Yeah. You just followed your heart.
So now I just stay at home and I write, and I do
about not your kids or
big hulks now. You can't write about them. So I write fiction. And I've got 2 books in the pipeline, and I do classical
2
music.
books.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready for the quickie with Namu Kini?
Yes.
Are you a better grandmother or mother?
Grandmother. Although he's 3 weeks old and he doesn't know the difference.
Party all night or in bed by 10 p.m.?
In bed by 10 p.m. 9 p.m. Make that 9 p.m.
Your biggest achievement?
My kids.
50 Shades of Grey, love it or hate it?
I haven't even read it.
Retired in a bungalow on the beach or a penthouse downtown?
Penthouse downtown.
Would you say you've done it all?
Not yet.
Love it.